Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Welcome in, Bat fans. Before we get started with the main segments of the program that you are listening to today, I have the distinct honor and privilege of getting a few minutes with our esteemed editor-in-chief, Bill Jett Ramey. Bill, welcome to your own podcast, sir. How are you doing?
Hey, now I'm doing well. I'm doing great. Congratulations on your hosting gig on this here Batman on Film podcast. So looking forward.
Thank you.
You had some great ideas. Looking forward to see them play out over the next however how long you want to do this. Actually,
well,
so
it means a lot. You saying that, and also the opportunity. You know this, and I think anybody that follows me on social media or has listened to the podcasts that I've been on. I've been a reader of Batman on Film since I was, just barely a legal adult. So about 20 years now, and listened to the podcast through all the different iterations and, number of super talented people that have been on it before me. And then really got to be more involved in the podcast after I started writing for the site, when Ryan Haas was shepherding the show. And I mentioned that we're recording, I should say, on January 22nd. We recorded the majority of this episode on January 21st. I mentioned it last night. I'll mention it again because it's worth repeating. Ryan just did such a fantastic job, and I can't think of a nicer and greater guy for me to try to fill the shoes of. So I'm very excited for this opportunity, and I appreciate you giving it to me.
No, well, you're welcome. And Ryan's a long-time BOF contributor. He's one of the three senior BOF contributors, and he's still part of the site, and he'll be on the podcast. He may show up on the vlog, and the social hour. And you, of course, you're kind of my go-to guy. You and Pete are my go-to guys for the social hour shows. So, but everything, all the different shows should really start ramping up this year because the Batman is coming next year.
Absolutely. It's so great to be able to say that again. And that's why, I wanted to have just a few minutes so the listeners, and me can hear from you, what you think we should be anticipating over the course of the new year, not as new as it was, but 2021 here. What should we expect from the Batman? And, a little bit of what should we expect from Batman on Film would be great to hear about.
Well, I guess I assume that they're finishing up filming over in the UK. It's, here it's the latter part of January. They're supposed to be done in February. So, they're probably just a matter of days, few weeks from finishing principal photography. And then it goes into post. And, we're almost just, literally, I know we can say next year, but we're literally almost a year to the date out, come, about a little over a month, 5-6 weeks tops.
Right.
I suspect that it'll be a slow burn throughout this year of marketing and publicity for the film, because think about it, at the end of the year, that film is just, it's coming. By the time we get to January or December 31st or January 1st of 2022, it's coming.
Well, and at least the way it's the film slate plays out, if things don't continue to shift and move, God willing, they won't with coronavirus.
That's fingers crossed. Yeah, fingers crossed on that one. Yeah.
But the Batman is really poised to be the first big blockbuster, not just of 2022, but potentially since the beginning of 2020.
Yeah. Yes, that's true, and it's a Batman film. Like I think we've said before on the social hour. the Batman's going to come and he's going to fix all this shit. You know, he's going to save
Right.
it. It's kind of appropriate for a superhero to do that. Even though there are some superhero comic book movies coming out beforehand, and we hope they do well because it's good for the genre. But I mean, if you're wondering what's going to happen, I'd heard before they had moved to March of 2022, there was talk of a trailer coming out around Christmas time this past year. And of course the film got moved. So obviously scrap that. So maybe something March or April could possibly come out a year before, just some kind of another teaser.
Well, I was just going to ask you because I've seen some questions on social media
Mm-hmm.
and fans always ask this, and apparently they don't pay attention because
Yeah.
Warner Brothers typically does not do this. But would you expect any kind of presence during the Super Bowl this year?
No, I doubt it. It's a lot of money to spend on something that's going to do well anyway. I mean, think about it this way. You know, the Nolan films only did one Super Bowl spot, and that was for Batman Begins. And Batman Begins made the least amount of money of the three. So, I mean, you know, it's, I don't think so. I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't expect it to happen. No. It'd be nice, you know, to have a Super Bowl spot. I'm thinking more of the spring time, you know, getting into early summer. But, you know, by the time the fall gets here, I think the marketing is really going to ramp up because you're going to have a lot of, publicity stills and, different types of video type of stuff. And then you got to be advertising that thing around, by the end of the year, by December, going into next year. So,
and for me, it feels like the Batman and what we've seen of it and what we've heard of it right now could really lend itself well to a heavy publicity push in the fall. Like there's something about fall and people are kind of gearing up for, Halloween, and you get a lot of like a little bit more of your, certainly horror movies, but a little bit more of your gritty adult action type films get a lot of press in the fall for some reason before you get into like the big, bright candy cane Christmas movies. But even that has shifted a little bit more for counter programming. So it feels like that sort of press season could be lined up really well to carry the Batman and get anticipation.
I would,
I'm
thinking about it. I know they pretty much said they're going to do Fandom again this year. And if that's around the same time, I mean, August is a pretty good kickoff point, a real solid date of a kickoff point toward the Batman, its premiere, its release. And then to start from that point, really start ramping up marketing and publicity. So that's what I would probably look for. Maybe we get some kind of teaser in the spring. I would not expect anything at San Diego Comic-Con. I don't even know what the future of that is.
Yeah, who
right
knows?
now. I mean, the immediate future. I think it'll continue on. It'll survive. But Fandom was such a hit. I think that's what I'd be looking for as far as the official quote unquote start date of the Batman press marketing publicity campaign.
Yeah. And, to your point, the end of August is great too, because typically, we've seen the blockbuster season for movies sort of extend back into the spring and get started earlier. We haven't really ever seen it push back later into the fall. So typically by August, a lot of the air's out of the balloon and you're not competing with, the major motion picture that's coming out or about to debut or still, in their first couple weeks of release.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a vacuum for that kind of pop culture content in the media.
Yes. I would think, speaking of the Super Bowl real quick, I just got me thinking next year's Super Bowl may be, if you're going to do one, that may be the time you want to do it because you're literally less than a month away because now the Super Bowl is in early February. So you're 3 or 4 weeks away from the release of the film. That may be the time you want to do it, not this year.
Yeah, hold on to it. The so close to debut with an earlier than kind of typical opening weekend. The other thing is they can always then save their money, track and see how the promotions are doing. Is the IMDb page getting the hits they want to see, or the early trailers getting the YouTube views? And if it is, even slightly pacing behind or just on par, maybe you spend a bunch of money and get it in front of the most eyeballs you possibly can a month out from debut. So that's a very interesting thought. Anything of note we should call out for the BOFers out there in the site? We've got a lot of content going on, from movie news. We've got the social hour you mentioned. Podcasts are going to be picking up, comic book reviews. Any other thoughts around what people could expect, or how could 2021 compare to other BOF years?
I'll say this. There's nothing like a solo Batman film. And it's been going on 9 years since The Dark Knight Rises. And it'll be 10 years, difference between the Batman and Dark Knight Rises when it's finally released. But even through through Batman v Superman, Justice League, and all of this, I can always tell by the amount of visitors that Batman on Film gets and listeners to the podcast. And anything about the Batman is heavily read, heavily listened to. Just when they dropped the stuff at Fandom last year, I mean, it was, through the roof.
Those numbers are crazy. Interest, if you look at YouTube views and everything. Yeah.
Well, and it's relative to the site. And so if you've never been part of the BOF community for a solo Batman film, this year should be really, really fun. And the next 12, 14, 15, whatever it is, until the movie comes out, will be really fun. The build up, the lead up to the movie, it's great. And if you were with us for Begins and The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, I think we're going to get that kind of level of excitement again. So it's going to be fun. We're finally, like I said, we can finally say the Batman is coming next year. Hopefully we get this world, and I would say the country, but this whole world back to some mode of normalcy, and we can all go to the theater and see the Batman next year and see any movies like they're supposed to be seen.
Yeah, God willing, let's hope and pray for it. Bill, you've said in your past, when there is a solo Batman movie and the news starting to come around it, you are in your wheelhouse.
Yes.
I am thankful and grateful that while you're driving those wheels, I get to be along for a ride in the passenger seat or the back seat or wherever else with the rest of the Bat
We're in the
boys.
wheelhouse right here. This is the fun time. This is the fun time for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk with you, and let you get back to your day here.
Yeah, I'll see you on the social hour, and I'll be listening to the podcast, and then maybe I can come on if you'll have me to come on sometimes.
Would love you to. Would love you to. Be an honor. Hello, Bat family, and welcome to episode 175 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is a sponsor and a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. You can check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow us on Twitter at BatPodNetwork with the little @ symbol before that. I am Garret Grev, the new host of the Batman on Film podcast. Which is just a real treat for me to have this role. And the only reason I'm able to do it is because I am standing on the shoulders of the giants that came before me on this podcast. So special thanks to Ryan Haas, who was the shepherd of the show prior to this and will certainly be making appearances in the future. This is a special moment in the life of one Garret Grev. Thank you very much for listening. But you wouldn't want to listen to me alone. Trust me, that is just the truth. So I am joined with a couple of my very best Bat brethren, starting with Mr. Peter Verra. Peter, as a senior contributor to Batman on Film. He is one half of the Straight Outta Gotham dynamic duo, and he is a champion of smoke meets everywhere. Peter, thanks for joining us. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you doing? I guess this is your inauguration day.
You know what? I didn't think about that. We are recording on January 20th, 2021. Mm-hmm. I think, that analogy might lose its stretchiness at a couple certain points, but yeah, I guess so. Thank you for pointing that out. That is very special, Peter.
You're welcome.
Peter isn't the only one with me tonight. Ryan Lauer is joining us. You know, Ryan is a contributor to BOF. He is the host of the hottest new podcast about Batman comic books, the Batman Book Club, and he is just a real swell guy. I think he's neat. Ryan, thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thanks for having me, Garrett. It's been a while. That was born on the BOF podcast. It's not brought up too often on my show, so this is an honor that I get to be here with you and the Peter Verra. Peter Verra.
The sirens are important, and
Thanks.
you know, I know back when the three of us used to be on the show more regularly, we had kind of more episodes coming fresh and hot out the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes were recording out of Chicago, and sometimes we didn't just hear, you know, your DJ sirens. We heard, you know, the Chicago PD sirens rolling by. So that brings me back to.
Yeah, it was in the heart of Gotham. GCPD constantly flying around. We got sirens, I think, every single recording, multiple ones. Because the fun thing about the fire trucks there in Chicago is they're like, we need to see how loud we are, and we need to make sure that it's not one block, it's like 19 blocks. And so that sucker's coming. It takes 5 minutes, and then it whips by, and then you hear it in another 10 minutes. So I'm in Northeast Indiana right now. It's just a little quieter than big Chicago.
Just a bit. Small town Midwest boys, you know, that's just fine. Sometimes, you know, we get these coastal elites in the Jersey in the mix with us, but
there's no East Coast bias over here, fellas.
that's fantastic. But we're not biased at all. You know, we love all the BOFers out there equally because we all probably love Batman the most, and that brings us together. So thank you for joining us. We got a great show in store for you. There's some news items we're going to cover. We've got a fun trivia game we're going to introduce. And then we're going to get into a review of some of the latest and greatest Batman entertainment in season 2 premiere of The Batwoman, as well as Batman Soul of the Dragon. So, guys, without further ado, let's get into the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, fellas. So it's been the talk of the Twitter sphere and, you know, Peter, you'd know, the Vero sphere, probably more than anything else for quite some time now. But there was in this past week just a bit more information that Zack Snyder released about his upcoming Justice League project on HBO Max. And are you ready for this? I hope you're sitting down, but don't sit down yet. First, go to the bathroom, then come back and sit down, because
Okay.
Zack Snyder's Justice League is not going to be a 4-week installment of 1-hour episodes. No. You're getting a 4-hour movie all at once. Guys, what do we think about this? This is kind of some big news, right? This is flying in the face of what we heard during Fandom. Peter, what were your thoughts? I know you are the resident zaddy at BOF. I need to know what you think here.
Oh man, to be brutally honest, I don't care. I just want to see this damn thing. It's weird, like even when Snyder talks about it, he's mentioned like, oh, I want to release. It's going to be 4 parts. We're going to release it as a movie at one point. And then he's even said like, we're even going to have a black and white release. So it's like, there's just been theory after theory about this thing coming out. And I know it was kind of like a debate whether it was like, oh, is this going to turn off the general audience and whatnot? And I'm just like, man, I don't even think the general audience really knows about this thing, to be brutally honest. So
Well, that's a great point.
I just want to see it. Like, I don't care how they really do it. I originally thought like, oh, it's going to be a mini series. That makes sense. HBO Max is kind of like a TV thing. So like HBO is known for dropping their TV shows on Sundays and everything. And it was kind of cool. Like, I think it could kind of be event-like, but if they're just going to do it in one shot, it makes me wonder if Warner Brothers is like, can we just get this thing over with? Can you guys just do us a favor? You know, like, let's just rip this bandage off. So whatever. I'm just down to see it. I want to see what all the hype's about.
It's an interesting theory, and obviously there's been a lot of conversation about it. You know, Ryan Lauer, I know you are also maybe a bit more of a Snyderverse fan than some of those others of us you find around the Batman on Film parts. What do you think? How do you think this impacts the general audience? And do you think the general audience was aware enough of the previous format discussions for this to be some kind of curveball?
Well, first of all, in the neighborhood of Batman on Film, Peter Verra and I are alone on the BVS island. We are massive fans of BVS. We love BVS. and various degrees, others of it's okay, it's not very good, and I think some people just downright despise it. But that's neither here nor there. Pete and I are fans of what Zack Snyder's doing with DC, and especially BVS, and Justice League is supposed to be a continuation of that. I don't think that the general audience knows about this. I know that comment right there could get all sorts of responses of like, they do too, because there's people that think that they know everything that's going on. Some people do know everything that's going on. I just don't think that the general audience necessarily knows what this is, because nobody knew what Justice League was when it first came out. Basically, look at track the box office numbers of it. People didn't know a whole lot, didn't really care. And so I think in the end, it doesn't matter whether it's one movie or 4 episodes to me. Like it doesn't matter to me. When it comes to how it's released, I stand by the thought of, if you extend something's release, that's also extending a conversation. So it could make it could be promotion for it by its coming out like in the month of March, like one every Friday, or half of March, the rest in April, because that business wise, that's 2 HBO Max subscriptions and stuff. And I think of how Marvel released WandaVision, instead of dropping all 9 episodes on a Friday, so that next Tuesday or Wednesday, it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's old news. WandaVision's old news. What's next? What's the next thing that's popping up? It's like they drop 2 episodes, and then for the next 7 weeks, it's just going to be talking about WandaVision, and that's going to extend a conversation, and therefore more people will get informed by it as time goes on, and then start like backtracking and watching and stuff. And it might create interest. And I just think I understand the Netflix model of drop everything so you can binge it. That has, positives for sure. I think the slow rollout once a week, definitely. I don't know, if you want attention on something, I think that's kind of the route to go. But also people who know about it and are planning to watch it, they don't give a shit.
I think there is a entire group that was already sold, right? And
the hashtag brigade.
The hashtag brigade, right? The associate producers, they're going to be there. And the rest of us, not the rest of us, right? But there's a whole other contingent of DC fans that are going to show up for this thing that aren't associate producers, but they're interested. They're invested in these characters. They want to see what's going on, and they're curious, right? Mm-hmm. I am thinking, and this might be, guys, I might be being a little bit personally biased here about what's best for old Garret. I was actually really looking forward to a mini series because I thought I could get my wife to watch it. I was like, oh man, my wife loves The Undoing. We just watched Flight Attendant. My wife thinks, and a bunch of others before that, right? My wife thinks a limited series on HBO Max, like that means high quality for her. She'll give it a go in the Corona world. I thought, hey, maybe this is one where I don't have to stay up till 3 a.m. watching it by myself, because I'm a watch it all in one guy. I know a lot of people are saying you can hit pause whenever you want, and that's true. I don't like to interrupt the narrative. I'd like to get this, I like to watch movies the way they were intended to watch. But I thought if it was a weekly deal, hey, maybe I can get my wife to watch this with me, and I'm not going to have to, do it all on my own. But that's neither here or there. I think there is one of these things where if you release product, if there's a way to release product a bit at a time, you have a chance to sort of like weasel your way into the broader zeitgeist and go from a niche product to something that is a little bit more evident in pop culture. So I actually very much liked the initial plan to make this a mini series. It also helps to differentiate itself from the Justice League movie of 2017, which, you guys like Batman versus Superman. I like Justice League. I'm a Justice League guy. I'm a big fan. That's a solid B+ movie in my book. It's in the top half of my DCEU rankings. But audiences didn't go wild for it, right? And if there was something that was going to make it very clear that this isn't just a director's cut of that movie you chose not to see 3.5 years ago, the miniseries route could have helped with that. So anyway, we're going to see it. Hashtag dudes are going to see it. Left to be determined if the general audience.
Anyone who says they're not going to see it, I don't believe you.
If you travel the same spheres we do, I don't believe it.
Yeah,
I think people are going to see it either to hate on it or what. I mean, I'm just I'm so curious at this point. Like, it's been what, 3-4 years of just arguing and debating and scuttlebutt of this, that, and the other thing. I can't wait for this thing to drop and to find out what's true, what's not true. I can't wait to compare it to 2017. It's kind of like fun for me. I mean, I'm sure Twitter is going to be a battle zone like it was in 2016, but
it's going to be maybe worse than leading up to the election.
Oh, yeah. It's somewhere between BVS and an election. That's
right.
what it'll be like.
I'm with you. Now, starting to hear rumors, right? And they started to break through a little bit more in this past week. Another potential visual bat feast on HBO Max. A sequel series to Batman the Animated Series might be in the works. I mean, for guys that are near or around our age, this is a huge chunk of our childhood, probably a formative part of us becoming Batman fans. I'd love to get your overall thoughts. Ryan, what did you think when you heard the news we might be getting more Batman the Animated Series?
I think it's a no-brainer. HBO Max needs content, and if you want to make a show, animation right now is key. It was key last year. They kind of didn't need to stop production with animation because people could just do it all from home. And you've heard of voiceover people just, a lot of them have their own studios at home anyway, so they can do the voicing at home and send it to somebody to create and stuff, to where I just kind of feel like animation's just like, that's kind of the way to go right now. There's not going to be any COVID hiccups really, because everybody can just do it all from home. And so HBO Max needs content. The virus doesn't need to impact the production of an animated series. And Kevin Conroy loves that he was Batman, and he will always be Batman. And Lauren Lester, as we saw from the Batman Harley Quinn movie, he would come back and voice Dick Grayson. And then you can just go from there. And I think it excited me. It also totally made sense. And then also I'm waiting for the next Batman, like animated series to happen, because we have a Batman movie that's coming. And there is an interview that James Tucker himself did that was in the 100 Things Batman Fans Should Know and Do, or before something like that. I think Tucker said in that usually it's kind of like when there's a Batman movie coming, there's an animated series. Like that's what happens. And you go back to Batman the Animated Series, it came out around when Returns was out and lasted for a couple of years. And then Batman Beyond was out, and then The Batman came out, and then, covered Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And then Batman the Brave and the Bold came out right after The Dark Knight. Beware the Batman was after Dark Knight Rises. Didn't really last. And so we're on like an 8-year hiatus of a Batman animated series. It's just time, and I'll shut up now.
No, Beware the Batman. That's one that I really wish. Now, you are nothing but an angel.
I'm a little passionate about this, okay? Give me my damn cartoon series.
It's been a while. And, here's the
I hear
thing.
that in like a stained voice.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Someplace the dude from Stained is just like, what? Somebody,
I'm inspired.
I've been quarantined.
I'm so sad and depressed because that's how I write.
I've got this tingle up my spine. Someone
I
actually
must
talked
be happy
about
then
Stained.
right now.
Yeah. No one's talked. I haven't had this feeling in quite some time.
Oh, geez.
Peter, let's switch it over to you. When you hear this, the idea of a Batman the Animated Series, the rumor is sequel, but to be fair, we don't know. The premise could be anything. For this to be something of merit that you'd be really hyped about, would you need to see the voice cast come back? Would it need to be, headed up by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini? Does it need to be sort of the key, every sort of magic ingredient from the 90s brought forward to now? Or what are your thoughts around that?
I'm probably going to be in the minority here, but I don't want a continuation of Batman the Animated Series. That is perfection. It'd be like making a fourth Nolan movie, like leave it alone, let it be. I would want something new, something fresh. I would like somebody with an idea and a passion, obviously, kind of like a film, I would like somebody. It's weird because nobody really knew. Like it'll probably be like obviously headed up by Bruce Timm, James Tucker, and like Sam Liu would probably be involved, right? Those are usually the guys who are involved with this stuff. But I would like a new interpretation of Batman, not necessarily a sequel. Because when you say sequel, I'm like, I got that. That was Batman Beyond, and again, that's the sequel, and I love that a lot. So like that era of Batman, from animated new adventures to Batman Beyond, is just so precious and special to me. Like, I don't really want to. Maybe if you made a sequel to like Batman Beyond and it was just Terry, that I would be kind of into that. But like, I don't think that's where they're going. That, and I've heard that doing the Batman voice is very strenuous on the vocal cords of Kevin Conroy, so he tries to limit how he does it. So like, I don't know if you can bring him back, even if he wants to come back. You know, maybe, and if he does, maybe it's limited. But like, I want a new series, yes. But I want that original Timverse series to be left alone, because you know what, even Justice League is a continuation of that, and you know, Superman the animated series. So like, that Batman has been through a lot, and I've seen pretty much every adventure, right, that he could be through. What else could they tell me?
That's a really good point. And
they just did a book, Batman the Adventure Continues, where they've done some stories as well. So it's like,
you beat me to it, Peter. I was going to say there's a comic book that's already done this. Now, before I get into my next thought, I was going to say I can vouch. I know Kevin Conroy is a trained vocal actor, but I often do Batman voices when I read books to my little boys, and it shreds the vocal cords. Like, we can't. It's you don't want to hear it. I'll maybe do it in the future. It's definitely a mix of Kevin Conroy and Christian Bale, and depending on how long I'm reading, it starts to get more Bale. Like, it starts like it kind of starts out like, "Come on, Robin, let's go," and then it ends up being like, "Come on, Robin, let's go," because it's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. I mean,
you should just do that voice and sing.
I'm sure it might be easier when you're like sitting on the other side of Tower Strong, you know?
Yeah. The inspiration comes to you.
Yeah.
But, you know, all those points about the follow-ups we've had are totally true. Now Bill, our esteemed editor-in-chief, has posted, I think, on Twitter and on, you know, BOF proper, about his desire would be a prequel series. I think that could be very interesting. I actually would sign up for that. That kind of screams limited series to me more than ongoing. So we'll see what happens. But it's cool to know there's something in the works. And Lauer, to your point, when we're about to get a live action movie, typically we get an animated series, or there's something already brewing.
That's marketing, man. That's marketing.
Yes. You know, like, there was nothing for BVS animated wise, you know? So
yeah, they had cereal. That's what they had for the kids, was cereal.
The Superman cereal was better than the Batman cereal.
Yeah, the Batman cereal is awful. The Superman wasn't great, but it was better than the Batman one.
It was not tasty.
And I hate to brag, but I know sugar cereal, okay?
Yeah.
It was not good.
You are the resident connoisseur. I will give you that. All right, boys, that is the news. Let's play a game.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me. What are you?
All right, guys. So the name of the game is What Are You? I am going to be giving you 3 just sort of standard, regular trivia type clues. The 4th clue is the dead giveaway. Now, we are playing on the Bat Honor system, and this is a, you know, audible medium. This isn't visual. So I'm asking you guys, you know, say, pull your favorite Batman and Robin panel image from Dark Victory, hand up, take the oath. You're going to be honest here. What I'm asking you to do is, as I give you these clues, you alert me and the listener when you think you know what the thing is of the game. What are you? The first person to accurately identify what the thing is, in this case, it's a person, I'll give you that.
Oh, okay.
Is the winner in the head-to-head matchup of Ryan versus Peter. Boys, are you ready to play?
Yes.
I'm ready. Pete, no matter what happens, let's still be friends.
That's good.
We'll see about that.
Friendship rules all. All right, guys. So this is a character, and this character has appeared in the Batman 66 series, Gotham, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Brave and the Bold, Young Justice, and Harley Quinn. What's your first clue?
Harley Quinn, the series that was on DC Universe, now HBO Max.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
That clarification is fine. It's allowed.
Okay. Just want to. Okay.
All right, boys. Moving on to clue number 2. This character debuted in 1948. Batman issue 49, if you really wanted to know.
Whoa, hey,
That wasn't in the show notes. I just called an audible.
somebody's bragging.
Clue number 3. This character has appeared in all the Arkhamverse games. Oh,
I have a
Ryan
guess.
Lauer has
I
signaled
don't know.
that he knows. Now, you write down your guess. Peter,
Red.
would you like to write down your guess now, or would you like to hear
No, I'll
the
take
fourth?
I'll take clue 4.
All right. Clue 4, this character has a trademark fashion accessory.
Fashion accessory.
Holding up so that you know that I'm not.
I have no idea who this is.
I
I don't
have
know. It's
written
because I've
down.
had a couple drinks in me.
That's good. That's good.
I've had a little too much Di Serono thanks to Reno. Yeah. Okay, Laura. I'm totally stumped.
All right, Lauer, flip over your piece of paper. Show it to me. What do you have, sir?
I'd like to answer in the form of a question. Who is the Riddler?
Oh, you are incorrect. However, Peter, I'll give you one
Fashion
chance to
accessory.
steal it. You know it's not the Riddler.
Is
You
it the
heard all 4
Penguin?
clues. It is not the Penguin. Oddly enough, all 3 of these guys in different interpretations have the same trademark fashion accessory. That is a hat. It is Mad Hatter.
Oh
No joke. That was the first thing that popped in my head.
Oh, I was thinking umbrella. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Well, hey guys, here's the deal. I tried to go vague. Next time I have you on, I'm going to turn down. We're going to go from expert level to like night level, and that's going to be fun. It's be fun. We all learn something here
let's-
today.
So embarrassed.
Not so much like we're not Batman. We're kind of Robin.
Yeah, sure, exactly. That's a
Wait, can you say the question one? What were the things that he's appeared in?
yeah. We'll learn together. This character for the listeners and everyone. And by the way, guys, I didn't just like write this off the top of my head. Wikipedia is a pal. Character is Mad Hatter. Mad Hatter appeared in Batman 66, Gotham, Batman the Animated Series, Batman Brave and the Bold. That was actually the imposter Mad Hatter version with the red hair and mustachio. Young Justice, Harley Quinn.
Mhm.
Mad Hatter was in all the Arkhamverse games. Mad Hatter debuted in Batman issue number 49 in 1948. And his trademark accessory, of course, is a hat.
See, I haven't actually seen every episode of Batman Brave and the Bold. It's not really.
haven't
my
either.
thing.
Oh,
So, yeah. A lot of people-
you know what? I
How many-
hadn't. I didn't watch it initially as much.
Mhm.
I caught issues here and there. When I wanted to start showing the Grev boys Batman stuff, it was kind of my easy go-to because although
Yeah.
there's some like more slapstick violence, there weren't the real sort of mature and
Yeah, no, I
darker
agree with you.
themed episodes like BTAS. So that's how I got into it.
You're way more conservative of a parent than I am. I mean, like,
I know.
I mean,
man.
my parents showed me like RoboCop at like 6.
Yeah.
So-
Oh boy. Yeah. Peter, no offense, man, but this is exactly what I'm looking to avoid here.
yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for playing along. Let's talk some Bat content. So this is where I go from participant to sort of interviewer. I have not watched Batwoman. I didn't watch season 1.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
I
huh?
know. It wasn't like I wasn't taking a stand for any goofy reason. It just was sort of not on my
Is it the
radar.
acting?
It started with just having too many shows I was watching, and then it turned into I heard not great things about the acting. But I know it developed a pretty decent size audience over at the CW. Ruby Rose, acting chops notwithstanding, is a very charismatic actor. So I think the departure obviously was some big shocking news last year. The big news for this year is we've got a new lead actress. We've got a new lead character. And Peter, I think I'm gonna throw it your way first because I know you watched season 1 and now we're on season 2. What did you think of the debut episode, man?
Season 2, in my opinion, is already better than all of season 1. I feel like those who needed it attended acting classes. And most importantly, the lead is a far superior actress to Ruby Rose. Ruby was a bit wooden at times. It sounded like she was reading things off of a page and not really acting. So I was into it. I dig the whole vibe where new character, just fresh beginning, and just everything with and just leading. Season 1 ended early because of COVID, so I think they ended 2 episodes short. So again, like the whole like hype of everything was just kind of like, well, I was like, well, what are they going to do? More than just like, oh, I can't wait to see them continue the story. It's like, how can they possibly continue this with 2 episodes that they couldn't film, and then Ruby Rose quitting? So you're like, what happens? But I really dug it. I think it's Ryan Wilder. Is that her name?
That is the character's name. I did some research here too. Wikipedia once again. Ryan Wilder.
There we go. I was into Ryan Wilder. Cool. She just recently made her first in-canon appearance in comic books in Batgirl issue number 50. And it was just the only negative thing I really have to say about the show was the Batmobile was very generic. I felt like it was a Dodge Charger off the lot, but I was into it. And Ryan, what else did you think?
Javisha Leslie, I think is her name. I thought she was a major upgrade from Ruby Rose. I watched the CW crossovers from a couple years ago where Arrow and Flash basically went to Gotham and stuff. And so we saw Ruby Rose then. That was kind of her introduction, and I was not impressed. And then I watched the pilot of Batwoman, and I'm like, basically, the main person is the worst part of the show to me. Yeah. So I never continued because I was just kind of like, yeah,
it makes it really tough to keep.
Oh,
viewers.
Dude, it was rough, bro. It was rough.
It's not to be a dick. I'm just like, I just feel like you were really bad, and I just don't really want to unless I hear otherwise. I think I'm done, and I didn't hear great things at all. But then we got to start listening to Peter Verra because this guy, he's been championing season 2. He also
hour of it
not too long ago. It was the only person that was talking about Justice League Endless Winter in the comics coming out. Ooh. The only person, and then led up to it, and then that whole comic series was really good. So like, yes, listen to Peter Verra, okay? And so I decided. Pete convinced me to watch the season 2 premiere, and I didn't think it was too shabby. It felt like a CW DC show. But when the main lead is replaced by somebody who's,
actually can act,
it's like I wasn't going to be like, oh, she was great, but she was definitely better than just fine / okay.
Well, I remember when Ruby Rose first started to kind of like break out into, the scene and get a little bit more well-known, and ended up on Orange is the New Black. And her character on Orange is the New Black, I didn't know if I was supposed to not like the character and not want the character on the show, or if that was a Ruby Rose thing and she was just like, oh, I'm kind of an actress and more of a model and someone that's been in music videos. And I think what I learned throughout the course of that and what I've heard about Batwoman is like, she's just not an actress, and that's fine. Like, she's very, like I said, charisma. And sometimes actors and actresses can get by on charisma for a long time. But if you are the anchor to a dozens and dozens of episode long run on a television program, that might be a challenge. So that was always sort of my question. It's I'm encouraged to hear what you boys are saying. Peter, you mentioned something around other actors or actresses that might have needed a little bit of sprucing up in the acting department. It seemed like they had gotten it, which leads me to my next question. I was going to ask, I don't know anything about this. Are the rest of the characters around Ryan Wilder reoccurring or reappearing characters that have carried over from the first season?
Oh, it's clearly a continuation, right? Like, the only new character is Ryan Wilder. So they're clearly picking off where they left off, and and how they kind of started it, I thought was kind of just unique and creative. And sure, like everything, as every weird TV show, everything is at the right place at the right time, and everything's very convenient. But like, I was like, you know what, for a CW show about capes and tights, like this is way better than all 22 episodes. I binged season 1 of Batwoman, so like I pretty much watched it within the course of a week. And it was pretty rough to get through if it wasn't an action sequence. And the action I thought was always top notch. And whenever Batwoman was on screen, it was entertaining. Or whenever Alice was, she seems to be the big bad, even in season 2. So those were the highlights. But like everything around Ruby was very rough. So, Javisha, she's doing a fantastic job, and, she's got me hooked. And, Commander Kane, as he's not as wooden as he was. And Kate's sister has even improved her acting a bit. And, and it's cool. It has its moments. Like I said, I just wish that, like I said in the group text, man, like they couldn't just take out Clooney's car, cover up some neons, and put a canopy on it. Like it's so, that Batmobile is so generic. It's just, it looks right off the lot. But
and this is a world, correct me. I know I tuned in. I sort of, guys, I'll admit, I sort of fell off the wagon when it came to the CW shows a little while ago. But I did tune in for some of the big crossover stuff. This isn't a world where the universe that this Batwoman exists had a Batman. So
no, it did.
It did, right? That's what I'm saying.
So Batman's MIA, like Batman's gone.
Okay.
And that they don't know where Bruce Wayne is missing.
Sure.
So in turn, like Bruce Wayne's missing, Batman's missing.
So the concept that there could be like a full-blown super rad Batmobile out there for her to ride around it, like that could very well be there. But they went with a Dodge Charger.
Luke Fox, like, is kind of like, I didn't even know this was here. I was like, how did you not know the Batmobile was in the cave? So it's a little weird, and it's, like I said, it's not perfect, but like compared to where it was, I thought it was a vast improvement, to be brutally honest with you.
For someone who saw one episode of 20 of season 1, I was able to jump in and follow it along pretty well. Some of it was because they definitely filmed some scenes to be like, hey, audience member, this is what's going on right now. So, wow. So you're telling me because this is your history beat by beat and everything. And then we never go back to that other character saying all that again and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's to make sure that we understand what's going on.
Hi, I'm here for exposition.
And
yes.
This might be kind of a little bit of a spoiler. So I don't know, plug your ears for 10 seconds. But I mean, I giggled the fact that she was playing a homeless person that lived in her van. And yet she was totally decked out in like makeup and like she just, she was going out for a night of drinking with friends and everything. And I'm like, I'm sorry, homeless people don't look like that. I've been in Chicago enough now that homeless people don't look like that. And so some of that stuff, and she kind of was talking to herself while she was, on the roof of her, or her talking to her plant and the sky while she's sitting on the van of the roof of her van. And just like telling us, the audience, more of like, this is what I'm thinking right now so that you're all up to speed. It just kind of made me giggle a little bit. And I'm like, that to me is kind of like, that's CW shows. Like,
yeah.
I laughed. I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't watch this. I just kind of giggled, but then I was like, whatever.
Those are the moments when I call Lauer. It's that she's just talking to a plant.
Well, guys, there's some shows. We just ran out of a couple shows that we were watching. So I've got some room in my schedule. I'm not sure. You guys are giving me just enough to consider if Batwoman should slide up into the regular viewing.
I think you should watch it, definitely. I mean, it's bat oriented, so it's. Like,
I know.
I didn't. You know how I feel, Garrett. How I felt about Batwoman season 1, and I don't regret watching this episode at all.
Well, Lauer, I get the idea Peter might be more of an easy sell based on how much he loved Gotham. I'm going to take your word for it.
I did not love Gotham. I no, I didn't know.
I know. No. That's the joke. Listeners.
I hate that. That show is abysmal. It's a stain on the legacy of the Dark Knight.
He loves Gotham about as much as our brother Eric Holzman loves Captain Marvel.
Well, that is a subject of debate
up
for
there.
sure. Then.
That is right up there.
That's loves way.
I thought you were going to say as much as Bill loves Batman Returns.
I know. I thought for sure that was going to be a Bill in either Batman Returns or BVS. All right, guys, great Batwoman convo. Let's move on to sort of the meat and the potatoes of what I thought we'd talk about tonight. The 40th animated DC feature film directed by Mr. Sam Liu. Yes, Sam from a whole bunch of other DC movies, including Superman or All-Star Superman was my favorite of what he's done. And also Batman and Harley Quinn, which is my least favorite of everything he's done. But we're not talking about either of those. We're talking about Batman, Soul of the Dragon. Gentlemen, what did you think about this 70s kung fu film influenced Bat Tale? Lauer, give me your overall impression.
I thought it was pretty damn good. As I wondered going into it if it was going to be like a Batman Brave and the Bold, and watching it kind of was, except it could have been instead Bruce Wayne the Brave and the Bold. because we don't get much of the cowl and cape in this movie. And that entered my mind watching it like twice. So I guess that was my only nitpick, was that for us nerds who pay attention to stuff, of kind of like, oh, so for them to be able to make this movie that they really wanted to, it's kind of like, we need to slap Batman on it, because that's how people will give it a chance. And it works, because if it wasn't named Batman, I didn't see Batman in it, I don't know if I'd have come around to this and watched it on my own, because kung fu movies, they're not really my genre. It's not my thing.
Oh, boo.
You shut your damn mouth.
That's the Indiana coming out of him.
That's right. But I mean, they're just not usually like my thing. And so I get it. And then also for, if they're making these movies for their niche audience. Like, they're making it for us fanboys now. They're not trying to provide to the masses. But if they are, somebody's going to watch it, and if they're not informed, they'll be like, where's Batman? This isn't really Batman. And that could affect the viewing, which is too bad, because the movie itself as a whole was pretty damn entertaining. I liked places it went. It went a little mystical, which kind of, with Batman, I'm like, but also I was kind of like, I kind of don't care, because I'm really digging what they're doing with this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I liked all the supporting characters. That was fun too.
Peter, let me ask you this specifically. Did you feel like there was enough Batman in Batman Soul of the Dragon?
Yeah, to be honest, I thought there was probably too much Batman, actually. Like, I thought the third act, you didn't really need Batman. I was actually... This was really cool, because I love Kung Fu, and like Bruce Lee is one of my favorites. You can see my Bruce Lee pop over my shoulder.
I can. Listeners can't, but we can.
Yeah. But there's a lot of Soul of the Dragon. There's some James Bond in here, and it really like emulates that 70s vibe which is so interesting to me. But like, I thought Batman was actually in it the perfect amount. Because like in the beginning in Gotham City, he appears, and like that's where Richard Dragon is kind of like, oh, you're you in this mask. So like, it was interesting to me, just the overall aspect of how much they used Batman, well, how little they did, but it didn't bother me. And I'm not really someone who is really into Batman and mythological stuff, or just magic and stuff like that. It doesn't really, tickle my fancy too much. So the way the movie ended, I thought was kind of perfect, because I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily need a sequel with, it's kind of open-ended in kind of like that magical realm. And I'm like, I kind of like where this is going. And I kind of like where it went, and just how it like translated things. And I was really into Richard Dragon, and Michael Jai White was fantastic as Bronze Tiger, and Kelly Hu was great as Lady Shiva. And I can't pronounce this guy's name, Mark Dacascos. He played Richard Dragon, and he was good in the movie as well. And interesting enough, like I remember from CCXP, the three of them have actually fought each other in other movies they've done. So they have, they've actually cast martial artists in the role, which I found interesting. And yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Sam Liu. Interviewed him a bunch of times, and he's nothing but a professional, and he's a big fan of Batman on film. And, I'm a big fan of his. And this is just another really solid entry into the DC animated original universe.
When you started that, I instantly thought of Jennifer Aniston in Office Space. I love Kung Fu.
I love Kung Fu. Yeah,
I do.
Totally. I love Kung Fu too.
Connection and all that stuff. Like, I'm a big fan of just Kung Fu in general.
I can't remember, Peter, you might even been with me when I was talking about this at some point. When I was a kid, we lived in the middle of nowhere. We had no TV channels. We got like PBS, and that was it, until we got this like new Fox affiliate. And this would have been like late 80s.
I remember the story. Yeah.
They had access to like 70s Kung Fu movies. So it's sort of like 15 years later, you started getting the rights to movies that were hot, a decade and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And there was a ton of Kung Fu movies on every single night. They didn't have original programming. So it was like every night, 7:30 movie, boom, boom, boom. And it was Kung Fu, Bruce Lee, all over the place. For some reason, I thought, I was thinking this Brave and the Bold as well. I had in my mind that Batman Soul of the Dragon was actually Batman and Bruce Lee, like a fictionalized version.
Looks like Bruce Lee a little bit.
It does.
He wears an outfit that you see in the beginning of Enter the Dragon, so it's like, you're like, oh wow, like, and that's probably intentional. They probably put a little homage to Bruce, because he basically is the genre.
You're not alone. That opening sequence, and they did close-ups of his face and everything, and I'm like, oh, that's their, like, honestly, at that point, I didn't know. I'm like, is this Bruce Lee or is this somebody else? So you're not
going into the movie. I really thought it was like Batman meets Bruce Lee. And then in the first sequence, I'm like, yeah, it's totally Bruce Lee. And then it's like Richard Dragon. Say what? And
Well, if I'm not
Hey,
mistaken, Richard Dragon is a Denny O'Neil creation. And originally I think Richard was a white dude with blonde hair. So so I believe, because I was, again, all this is from CCXP and when they were promoting the movie. So they kind of retroactively went back and like, we should probably correct this.
Yeah, right.
So they made everything a little bit more accurate.
I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad they did. I really liked this Richard Dragon.
And there's a lot of like lore from DCU history in the movie. I mean, Cheshire's in it. You got Shiva. You've got Cobra. Bane's father, King Snake. He's in the movie. So like it really digs deep and really gets hands dirty in the lore of the DC universe.
Well, and the flashbacks were Nanda Parbat. I don't know exactly how, I forget how they pronounced it in the movie even, but it's kind of like, well, that's Bruce Wayne lore.
Yeah.
Also,
And then, I mean, my favorite Bruce Wayne love interest of all time, who's never actually been in a live action movie, Silver St. Cloud.
Silver St. Cloud.
I was
as
like,
soon as she showed up,
they were so close in '89 of using Silver St. Cloud, and then they did their old switcheroo and got Vicky's all angry.
Isn't Vicky's an original comic character too? She didn't originate from '89, correct?
Correct. Yeah, she was comics first, yeah.
So like I can't complain about that.
No,
it's not like they came up with some Rachel chick and threw her in the movie.
Well, I loved that little aspect of right when they open with Bruce, and it's Silver St. Cloud, and he's in the penthouse. I'm like, so they're even respecting the 70s time period of Bruce Wayne also. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's a fun little nugget for us nerds.
And it seems like it's very early on in the career of the Batman, right? Like he's operating a casino, bar, club type thing, and he's using it as a way to gather criminals and he's basically peeping Tom, he's listening in on all their conversations and everything. And it was cool. And the whole secret agent spy aspect of the movie was really cool. That's why I mentioned James Bond, I thought the action was interesting. I mean, watching Richard in the opening sequence just kick ass while eating an apple was just pretty impressive, if you ask me.
Lady Shiva was my favorite, and I knew I was going to forget what, she had a couple lines that were just kind of like badass, and one actually made me audibly laugh, and I'm like, yeah, that was sweet. And yeah, I thought she was awesome. She was my favorite.
She was great. It was just overall, just the whole like kung fu aspect of the movie I thought was really fantastic. And how they shot it, and how they animated it as well was just really good. And
it pulls directly on a whole genre that was such a big deal for so long. It was interesting to me the way that the director was able to meld that feel with Batman, because besides from not having as much Batman as we get in other Batman, DC animated features, we also sort of got a different backstory a bit on Bruce in his training on his way to becoming Batman, and all that sort of is wrapped around the fact that this is one of the rare examples that we get of a DC animated feature that has absolutely really no pre-existing comic book source material for inspiration. Before we kind of talk about the film itself more, what do you guys think about that? Is that something you'd want to see more out of these DC animated movies? Would you like to see more adaptation, or now that we have something for the first time in a while that's really not building on a pre-existing iteration of the character or a comic book, is that the way to go?
Go Ryan.
I was going to say, I feel like that's a question you can ask me at the end of this year, because apparently coming later on is going to be The Long Halloween.
Allegedly,
1 and 2. Allegedly, yes. And you guys know how much I love The Long Halloween, and it will be interesting to see how that's adapted. But as far as like classic Batman stories, of course, there's tons that they could pull from, but they've been hitting a lot of big ones. So eventually they'd kind of run out, right? And they need to think of original. And so I don't mind original stories at all. Make Batman / Bruce Wayne true to character, and I'll follow him into anything. I don't really care. Like, yeah, make up whatever story you want. Like this one is a perfect example. I followed him into Soul of the Dragon, where he fights in some mystical sword and goes through special gates and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, the movie was great. And Batman did what usually isn't it's not my Batman sensibility for him to do this, but I didn't care. I followed him in it, and I was enjoyed. So I enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm more than A-okay with them coming up with an original story.
Yeah, I'd like to see a bit more of a balance between original and adaptation. I feel like, and then there's what you said earlier, like the whole connected. Like, while I feel like Apocalypse War, Justice League Dark, was an original idea, it was a larger piece of that connected animated universe. But this is a standalone movie, and I like how they went with an angle, kind of okay. Well, let's kind of it's 70s, it's kung fu. Let's direct it towards that, and it's unique in its own way, and I really do appreciate that. But then, like, I do like something like Batman Hush, as long as it's made well. That's really my main concern. But if they have come up with more like original ideas, I'm not opposed to it. It's just got to be made with quality and heart, and that's my main concern.
And, I took a little shot at Batman and Harley Quinn, but Sam Liu's track record is pretty outstanding. And, he clearly had a story he wanted to tell in this. And, we've at BOF, and, whether you're on the Facebook group or, on the message boards or anything else, there's always a lot of conversation about the malleability of the character. And we're not alone in that, right? But it's something that gets brought up a lot. But if you can take, a director like Sam can take Batman and Bruce Wayne more than anything in this movie and say, I want to tell a 70s mystical kung fu movie or story with Bruce Wayne and Batman and make it work. Like, yeah, I'd love, whether it's Sam or other directors that have this idea, and it's a one and done. And if it's a big hit, get a continuation maybe. Let's see these different iterations, because I think animation is a genre that we can be a bit more, that viewers are a bit more forgiving of. One, it just feels different. It kind of carries different connotations than live action does. But to the point earlier, like, this is a niche product, right? This is to a very specific audience.
This isn't supposed to make $1 billion.
When you put Batman in live action and a tentpole feature film, you are telling the audience, this is Batman. Mm-hmm. It's not the version of Batman that we're telling an artistic story with. You're telling them this is Batman. Same thing with Superman, right? It's the same. It just carries a different weight. It would be really cool, in my opinion, if we see some more of these DC animated features that, tell a kind of, I don't know, what sounds like maybe an oddball tale. And if they can be as successful as I think this film was, because I enjoyed it a lot, I'd love to see more of it.
I think this has a lot of rewatchability just because of how unique of a movie it is. I've watched it 3 times, and it came out on digital what Wednesday, and I've watched
12,
it. To the point of just like, well, we're going to talk about this. So it's like I said, it's very unique, and if you're a fan of martial arts, obviously you gravitate towards Batman because he is a student of the arts, but this even doubles down on that into the whole like sensei thing, and then you just incorporate Richard Dragon and his vast background. But and like I said, like again, you throw Lady Shiva, you throw Bronze Tiger, who is arguably the only person who can actually defeat Batman in hand-to-hand combat, who's not an alien. So it's really unique, and it really explores things interestingly. Like I feel like we haven't seen Bronze Tiger since Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, which was directed by Sam Liu as well.
Right. There's a common thread there too.
Yeah.
Dude, Sam Liu's track record of directing. Soul of the Dragon, Superman, Red Sun, Wonder Woman, Bloodlines, Death and Return of Superman, Justice League versus Fatal Five, Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, Gotham by Gaslight, Teen Titans, The Judas Contract. Like, if he has one misfire, which is Batman and Harley Quinn, the dude's got he's still got
that's fine
97% or something.
Francis Ford Coppola directed Godfather 3,
which is still pretty good. You're thinking about what you're comparing it to. The other Godfathers. No, most other movies, pretty darn good. It's Sam Liu also. If you look at what he's done over at Marvel, he's done a lot of DC stuff recently, but he had a lot of good work. I think it's been a little bit, but there was that Hulk versus Planet Hulk. That was a really entertaining flick that came out, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, maybe, I think. Yeah. And there was a Thor picture that he did too. That was great. So, the guy knows animation. It's great. There's no question about that. What do you guys think? So we all enjoyed the movie from what I'm hearing. Peter, you gave us a little bit of your thought about maybe, do you need to see more? Do you not need to see more? The ending clearly sets itself up for you to either envision the pursuant fight in your head, or to be, whetting your appetite for another installment in a sequel. Ryan, do you think we're going to get another one of these? And would you really like to see one?
Really like to see one. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of just open to whether it's fun to just go on in your mind or not. I don't know. I don't think we'll get another one. I don't know why. I feel like I don't think that we'll get a sequel. If one is created and released, I will definitely watch it the first day that it's available. I would really be interested. I don't know how you can track sales numbers, but I'd be really interested to see between, digital sales, and then once the disc comes out, those sales, and just kind of see how did it do in comparison to the other DC animated movies.
Peter, what do you think, man?
Me personally, I'm not really into Batman and magic, but this movie is like kind of the exception because it's not really there a whole lot. But where the movie ends, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I need to see more because it might kind of take it away from me, But if the money's right and people dig it and buy it, I can see them making a sequel. Do I need one? No, but if they make one, I'm not going to be opposed to it. I will watch it and I'll judge it for itself. But I thought it was awesome, and if the fans love it and they want more of it, who am I to say no?
Yeah, I think, I'm sort of along the lines of where you are, where you both are. And I don't want to play armchair filmmaker, but one thing that I would really like to see if this thing hits and they're selling a bunch of digital and physical and physical copies.
It's the next generation.
Yeah. I've made that
for
up.
Your 4K TV.
Yeah. Guys, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it. It's going to be a big deal.
Innovative.
Yeah. That's what I do. But what I would like to see is more of this Batman. And I think the 70s setting is really interesting. Peter, to your point earlier, and Ryan, I think you touched on this too, like this sort of like penthouse nightclub Batman, like, I don't know, cool cat.
That's cool to me. Like I was
me.
Really like, he's literally on top of them, listening to everything they say. Like that aspect of Batman's really interesting to me. How he's not infiltrating them; they're coming to him. I thought that was fascinating.
He has set the trap. He is very, very wise.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see, even if this sort of skipped past and maybe it's a nice cold open with a big fight against this, snake god guy or whatever the name was. And then boom, mystical, we're kind of past that. And now it's Bruce in 70s Gotham, like with the, kind of late 30s, because this wasn't even a 70s Bat costume, right? We didn't really talk about that. The design aesthetic is a little bit more of like the original 1939 design.
It had 30s vibes in the cowl, definitely.
Yeah, the cowl and the ears. Like
that yellow oval, Peter.
Yellow oval.
Love to see it.
TYO. I think that could be really intriguing to kind of watch this Batman at work in Gotham, because we didn't get a lot of it, but what we got to me was really intriguing. I'd like to see more of that.
And I also dig how the Axe, I think, what do they call them? The Axe Clan, the Axe Group, whatever those guys, the ninjas in the beginning, it looked like a bunch of Sub-Zeros. I dug that, but I would love, I'm with you. I'd love to see more of this 70s style Batman. I'd love to see a 70s Joker or Riddler or even a Penguin. Like, can you imagine, like, it'd be great if the Penguin was losing money because of Wayne's Club and the Iceberg Lounge was failing, and he's kind of pushed even harder into this life of crime and everything. And I think that would be something that would be fascinating.
Not to mention a time period where turkey was thrown around commonly.
Jive turkeys.
Jive turkey. Yeah.
I was with Jive was said a lot. Turkey. Like and it makes me again like going back.
Baby.
It makes
always up. Baby.
And Enter the Dragon, like. All those scenes where he's, Williams is acting and he's doing his stunts, especially against the police officers early on in that movie. I'm like, oh man, this is just bringing back memories. So
it brought back a ton of memories.
Fantastic.
And sort of the ensemble, Mortal Kombat, the 90s Mortal Kombat movies was really trying to ape on Enter the Dragon. They were trying to do their 70s Kung Fu movie thing. But a lot of what those movies have is like here's this team of competitors or team of fighters that are grouped together, and there's this thing that's facing all of them. We got that in this movie. Before we wrap up the conversation on it, I'd love to know, Ryan, you go first. Outside of Batman, who was your favorite character that we got? I was thinking good guys, but you can go in general.
In this movie?
In this one, yeah.
Oh, Lady Shiva.
Yeah, that's my answer too, by the way. So Peter,
Okay.
you can say whatever you
I
want.
agree. It's definitely Shiva. I mean,
Lady Shiva.
she's the queen pin of Chinatown. She's
Mm-hmm.
kind of basically the whole reason for the movie. You know, she has the sword. She's, you know,
Yes.
she has the sword. She loses the sword. She gets it back, and she's just a total badass. Like it's.
In some
I mean,
ways,
and-
this is a Lady Shiva story. In fact, you know, if you look at Batman and Bruce, he's not the star pupil. He is not the best fighter. He's got some gas in the tank that the rest of them don't have. But it is
she's
a
got
Lady
the best
Shiva
one-liners
story
too. You know,
Yeah,
Exactly. And then when her little cage fight that she was observing from her throne, and the one guy was, you know, kind of was cheating. She's been down. She's like, "Bitch, please!" And she just kicked his ass. And I was like, "Hell yeah!" Like the way
And Kelly
she
Hugh's great, right? I mean,
yeah.
If you're looking for a tough lady, she's been a go-to for like what, at least 20 years since X2 and beyond. So, all right, guys, enjoy that. If you have not watched it, Batman Soul of the Dragon came out digitally January 12th, and it will release on physical video January 26th. Phygital. yet
When's
to,
the phygital
yet
release?
to
I'm
be
the phygital,
determined.
man.
I got to get the trade. I got
in
to get the copyright
4K,
on
you
that.
can feel the kicks and the punches.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
phygital, baby.
You can smell the snake blood.
4K
All right.
phygital.
Guys, thank you so much for joining. This was a very fun, very meaningful episode for Garret Grev, who grew up reading Batman on film and then listening to the podcast for years. To get to host this episode means a ton, and I really appreciate you guys coming along for the inaugural, as you mentioned, episode. So Mr. Peter Verra, please tell the folks where they can get more of your beautiful ways and means.
Well, you can follow me personally on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite Vero at Pete Illustrated. Please follow my show accounts of the show I co-host with the champion of Long Island. That is Mr. Eric Quincy Holzman at straight_O_G on Twitter and Instagram. Please follow my Facebook show page, Straight Outta Gotham. Please also join the Straight Outta Gotham Facebook group just for some cool fun and insight there. Please check out my reviews of Detective Comics, action figures, and other things at batmanonfilm.com. And Lauer, take it away.
You can follow me on the Twitter at Lauer_Ryan. I mostly flock to my podcast account, the Batman Book Club. You can follow that on Twitter and Instagram at the Batman BC. It's a podcast that explores the Dark Knight Library. Both of these boys, Garret and Peter, are VIPs of the show. They have their own rooms in the Batman Book Club.
You've locked
hotel.
me in my room for a while.
I have. I had to let some other people on, Peter, but you're coming up soon. And I just dropped the most recent episode was covering the Batman the Man Who Laughs by Ed Brubaker with a friend of the show, Tim Rooney. And yeah, we've got something in the mix with Peter Verra here, and then Garret Grev's also coming up again soon. So check it out, give it a look.
So
It's sort of an arms race between Peter and I to see who can log the most appearances on the Batman Book Club.
I think you guys are tied right now, honestly, for the most. I think you're both tied for the most. If not, then Pete's got you beat, Garret.
That is not okay. I don't know how we've ended up here. I'll keep that in mind for future appearances on the Batman on Film podcast. Now that I apparently have this power at my fingertips. What a terrible idea,
hey,
Bill.
What am I thinking? Pete and I both, like Pete wouldn't even say this. So we're reviewing the Future State, the next Batman and Dark Detective issues for Batman on Film.
Yeah, I'm used to saying Detective Comics. So one detective's as good as another, right?
I hope so. Although I have heard much better things about Future State, and I've checked out some issues than I was anticipating.
It's definitely more good than bad.
I've been pleasantly surprised with the issues I've checked out. Well, thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, listeners. If you would like to find more of me, you can follow me over on Twitter. I am at Garret Wato, that is GARRWATO. I talk a lot of Batman. I talk a lot of Superman. If you like sports, I talk about football and the Minnesota Vikings. And, if you're interested in my life as a suburban dad, there's a bit of that too. If you like to read words that I write as opposed to just listen to words that I say, you can check out my comic book reviews over at Batman on Film, where I cover Batman, Superman, as well as Justice League. I would also love for you to follow. There is a new account associated with the website, and that is at The Batman on Film, all one word, at The Batman on Film. That is going to be the official news feed of BatmanOnFilm.com. So check that out and get all the Bat goodness you would like. On behalf of Batman on Film and for Mr. Ryan Lauer and Mr. Peter Verra, I am Garret Grev. Thank you for listening. And as always, come back to the Batcave. Good night.
You have been listening to the official podcast of the one and only Batman on Film website. On Twitter, follow BOF at Batman on Film and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. For Jett and everyone at Batman on Film, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening to the authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.